My name's Luke Carter, and if you'd told me I'd watch a man in a bargain polo point a gun at my 81-year-old granddad on our own porch, with sirens coming up the block and a neighborhood watching, I would have said you were pitching a bad TV show. But that day was real. The air was heavy. My phone was already rolling, and Granddad's hands stayed behind his back like he'd been there 1,000 times before. We live in Sunset Trails, Oklahoma, the kind of subdivision that loves matching mailboxes and newsletters about decorative mulch. Our place is the odd one out. An acre with old pecan trees that were there long before the cul-de-sacs, and ever since Marla Bishop became HOA president. She's called our trees a hazard, and our acre a community opportunity. Park Sox, Tergalis, photo ops, you know what I mean. The day the trouble really started, I found our mailbox folded like a soda can. Envelopes blown into the ditch. A VA letter to my granddad, torn right across the date, and that kind of thing. Lights a fuse, you can't see. You just feel it in your jaw and your ears. Granddad didn't rant. He doesn't do that. He looked at the ripped letter, looked at the street, and said 2 words that landed like a gavel. Federal offense. So I called the postal inspector, got a man named Alvarez, who didn't laugh or downplay. He told me to document, take pictures, log everything. Names, times, patterns. And while I'm writing the first line, a silver Tahoe rolled by with no plates. Window slid down. A phone lifted. Click at me and click at the house driver. With a thin smile saying, "Nice mailbox," then gone. Like it had floated. And that was the tone going forward. Quiet intimidation, nothing official, everything. Slippery, Granddad answered. In his way, carried out a thicker steel post bag of concrete, and that little spade he swears is better than a shovel. If you treat it right, 81 years old and digging a deeper hole. Because if they push, we anchor. Then we mounted cameras, the real ones won. Under the porch, Eve, one watching the driveway, one up in the pecan tree where the bark smells like a memory. If you scratch it all, wired to a recorder on my shelf and mirrored to my phone. And after that, he told me to walk across the street and talk to Mr. Dalton. Retired broadcast engineer. Loves ham radio. The guy Marla keeps fining for sky clutter. Don't ask for help, Granddad said. Just tell him a story and listen. That week, 2 Tahoes took shifts a few houses down, like they had a schedule. Same 2 big guys, same stitched logo on their polos, a hawk holding a hammer under it. Neighborhood Integrity Task Force, which sounds official. If you've never looked up a state registry, I did nothing there. No filings, no authority, just a costume, and still they watched. They followed, they waited for us to flinch, and then Thursday night hit a different gear. I was reviewing the day's footage when everything sighed and went black. Not a flicker, a clean-cut lamp. Dead clock, dead. Air gone. Still, I checked the utility map. No outages peeked through the blinds. Every house glowing except ours. The streetlights steady. My stomach dropped. I ran to the garage. Breakers up. Flipped the main off. And on. Nothing checked the faucet. A cough of air. Then hollow silence. And right then, Granddad came down the hall with a kerosene lamp. From a time when people built things to last, set it on the counter, and said, calm as a Sunday. They cut it at the street. He'd filled a big orange water cooler that afternoon just in case, because he knew the pattern. Property damage, then eyes on you, then make the environment hostile, and that's when we moved outside to make the calls. Company, Water District Sheriff. Alvarez, give the case number from the smashed mailbox. Keep the voice steady. Don't give them your heartbeat. And while I'm talking, I hear a shovel scrape dirt near the fence. Not a raccoon, not wind shovel on clay. So I swung my phone light toward the sound and caught two figures digging at our line, a plastic-wrapped brick on the ground, with that too clean movie look. They froze, then ran. Our porch cam and pecan cam got the whole dance entry. Dig plant scramble. Deputies arrived and the bored tone vanished. Evidence bags came out at a utility tech showed the severed meter feed and a sawed curb stop. Blue and red lights washed the block and the quiet kind of ended. In the morning, a sheet of paper was taped to our door, like a prank. Emergency abatement and removal order, big title. Lots of whereases giving us 24 hours to vacate, while an abatement team addressed hazards. It cited an ordinance that didn't exist and bore a county seal with a lighthouse, which would be adorable if we lived near an ocean. Granddad put on his reading glasses, looked twice, and said one word, with a grin that made me stand up straighter after we scanned and emailed it to Alvarez. I called the detective from the night before and asked for Officer Klein by name, just to hear the pause. Granddad called a contact at the State Attorney General's office and laid out the pattern like bricks in a line. No drama, just facts. Then we swept the porch, turned every camera on, made a pot of coffee, and he said, "Let them hang themselves." They didn't even wait for their fake clock to run two white panel vans rolled up with that same Hawk and Hammer logo slapped on the sides. Out stepped the two big guys from the planting job, and two more, one short with a clipboard and a comb over. He guarded like a pet. Puffed out his chest and called Henry Carter toward Granddad, who just rocked and watched. Then the guy tried. "I'm Officer Klein with County Compliance. We're here to enforce an emergency abatement. You need to vacate immediately." And I stepped forward because somebody had to put words in their right places. "We're not going anywhere," I said. "You're not county. There is no Officer Klein in any department. The seal is clip art. The ordinance doesn't exist. What you're waving is a felony in paper form." That's when the big guy rested his hand on the bright open carry holster at his hip, making sure the sun hit it, and Granddad stood up slow with his hand still behind his back, the way a man stands when he knows he can handle what's in front of him. "Son," he said, voice low and steady, "take your hand off that weapon. You're on my property. You're not law enforcement. If you draw, I will treat it as a direct threat to my life and my grandson's, and you will not like what happens next." And the air got thick, like the sky had taken a breath and was holding it. The big man pulled his pistol, not quite aiming. "Just making a show, yeah?" That happened, which is right. When two things hit at once, sirens grew loud fast at the end of the street, and our little porch speaker crackled with Mr. Dalton's voice as he rebroadcast my phone feed across every frequency he could touch. "Afternoon sunset trails," he said. "With radio silk, we have a gentleman in a very brave polo, pointing a firearm at an 81-year-old veteran. Please hold your applause for the part where the real law arrives." Porch lights flipped on up and down the block. Phones came out, neighbors drifted into their yards, witnesses materialized, and that's how the temperature in a standoff changes. Two sheriff cruisers boxed the vans in. Deputies stepped out with voices that don't wobble. Sheriff's office weapon down. Now the big guy lowered, placed it on the concrete. Hands up, the others. Followed like a line of bad decisions. Falling over, Granddad brought his hands forward, empty. The internet had later. Froze the frame and turned it into a picture of grit, and while deputies searched the vans, an unmarked sedan slid in. Alvarez stepped out. badge on his belt, asked for the camera feed. A deputy pulled the SD card from the porch cam. Like it was a gold coin, then another deputy lifted a gym bag from the van, packed with little clear baggies of white powder, and the big man tried a smirk. He must have practiced. So I nodded at Granddad, and he flipped a small, unmarked switch, and our house exploded with light. Industrial floods washing the yard like a noon sun, and a short, hard siren burst that made everybody blink, then quiet again, while the light stayed. And the porch cam footage showed exactly what we needed it to show: the second guy sliding the van door and placing the gym bag. After they arrived, patting it like a pet. Looking around, the sergeant watched and said, "The kind of dry line you earn with years. That'll be tampering and possession with intent, and that might have been the end." Except a silver Corolla rolled to the curb, and a woman in a neat cardigan stepped out with a manila envelope hugged to her chest like a life preserver. "I'm Irene Cho, treasurer of Sunset Trails," she said, voice shaky, then steady. "President Bishop has been using our dues to fund these men." She labeled it safety and beautification, vans, uniforms, stipends, even firearms. It's all here: the checks, the invoices, the meeting minutes,